I was standing on the Pont, the place I'd once stood with Karim after we'd climbed the Eiffel Tower, trying to find somewhere, anywhere I could reach him again. I never saw the car until I heard the screaming and turned to see the driver scattering people like ninepins as he careered along the pavement. A lone wolf, the police called him later. A copycat attack, with Paris the next terrorist target. And if it hadn't been for her, the woman whose name I never knew. It was raining that day, a fine light drizzle that soaks your clothes and leaves smuts of Paris dirt on your skin. But I didn't care that I was wet through. I remember the sounds of the carousel rising above the traffic roar, while I leant on the bridge and watched the Seine swirling beneath me. I'd held it together for weeks while Karim was dying, being brave and strong and positive through all the gruelling and useless treatments. Now I thought, if I could just let the grey water wrap itself around me, I wouldn't have to bear the unbearable pain of losing him any longer. Hey there! Not exactly Paris in the springtime, is it? A woman put her hand on my arm. I hadn't even noticed her. Isn't this a wonderful view? There was something so soothing about the warmth of her hand against my skin that I couldn't bring myself to pull away. I always try to do the big tourist spots as fast as I can. Then I just wander around, see where my steps will take me. That's the best part, not knowing what I'm going to find or who I'm going to meet. She spoke perfect English, with the trace of an accent I couldn't place. Since the funeral, I'd been so exhausted by all the empty words, the sympathy, that there was a comfort hearing someone talk about the ordinary, everyday life I'd almost forgotten. It's people that make travelling worthwhile, that make places memorable, don't you think? I can remember exactly how she looked, because I gave a full description of her afterwards. Tall, brownish hair cut short, around 40-ish, I'd guess, but with that clear ageless skin that might mean she was older. She was dressed for travelling, jeans, trainers and waterproof jacket, and carrying a green rucksack. Grey eyes. Very clear grey eyes. I made sure they wrote that down, trying to give them something distinctive to recognise her by. Like meeting you. Who would have thought that our paths should cross today of all days? This must be a very special place for you. Then she put her arms around me, and I found myself telling her all about Karim and how this was the place where we'd promised we were going to be together for always. And once I began, I couldn't stop talking and crying and crying and talking, and all the while she just listened and held me till there was no more left for me to say. Except I told her that I wanted it all to end, now, because I couldn't bear it. She didn't try to argue with me or roll out any of the old clichés I'd already heard so many times. She just waited until I could breathe again. You know, you and I should go and get a coffee. Sit in one of those smart French cafes until you're dry. I'll tell you all about places I've been, and you can help me decide where to go next. And then you'll discover some time will have passed, and this will be my gift to you. That was the moment I heard the screaming. When I came round, I was covered in blood, but I managed to crawl over to where the woman was lying. I think she was still breathing at that point, but she was so torn and broken, like a doll somebody's boot had stamped on. All I could do was hold her hand. And then everything went black. Later, in hospital, when I kept asking about the woman, the doctors said it was the blow on the head which was making me confused, or that's where all the blood had come from, and the shock, that it would take time. When I insisted the police tell me where she was, what had happened to her, they told me everyone on the bridge had been accounted for. There was no one matching her description anywhere. All the other pedestrians near me were on the bridge were either dead or suffering life-changing injuries, while I only had a few stitches and a mild concussion. I had been unbelievably lucky, they said. But I knew luck had nothing to do with it. I remembered how the woman and I glanced at each other in that split second before the car struck. There had been an infinitesimal moment in time when she could have moved to save herself, but she didn't. Instead, she pushed me aside and saved me. And not just me. That's when I discovered there was Kareem's baby too. Its tiny heart pulsing with life on the monitor.